Hello, and welcome to Ask an Archaeologist. I'm Paul Duncan McGarrity. Hello, and welcome to the final episode of Ask an Archaeologist with me, Paul Duncan McGarrity. Yeah, that's right. I have decided that after, on and off 5 years, it's time to bring things to a close. We will get into why probably later on. But first of all, I just want to say right off at the top, thank you to everyone who's listened through all of the time that we've been on. Whether you are someone who has just got hold of us or someone who's been with us for every step of the way, it's really been appreciated. The questions that have been asked, the feedback all the way through has been magnificent. But I'm sure as we'll go through things, you will realise that my reasons for stepping back are valid. And it's time for me to do something else. However, that said, I can't leave something that has been such a massive part of my life, something that has taught me, at the very least, how to record sound without, the sound of the cafe at the British Museum in the background. That's something I learned quite early on. Don't record in public spaces. You will almost entirely lose a really interesting interview with Jane Siddell. But what it's also given me is a connection to incredible people throughout the world of archaeology. That I will be keeping my Twitter account open and active, I'll tell you that much, mostly because it is through incredibly dedicated curation. The feed has no Nazis in it. It's just got lots and lots of archaeologists. It's almost like there's some sort of antithesis between the two. It's generally quite an interesting place to be, full of very exciting people. So I'll still be popping in there. The only thing that won't be happening is these audio recordings. And as I said, though, I can't leave you in the lurch. I can't just leave you with a goodbye. So we're going to have one final episode, a farewell with a very, very special guest. Particularly for anyone who has been watching from the beginning or who went back and listened to how we all started. Because, as I said, I learned how to record sound. But it used to be that there was someone far more competent. This podcast actually sounded good at one point. And that was entirely down to the inimitable skills, the majestic voice, the wondrous question asking of a returning producer Dill.
Hello.
Hello, you. It's so nice to have you back.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
Yes. So, I mean, is it a secret, or are you willing to disclose your current location to people?
Well, I was just so inspired by working with you on the podcast, in particular your passion for building archaeology, that I thought, where can I go and live that I'm basically living in a existing archaeological site?
Yeah. And where did you choose? Was it somewhere dry and not in danger of sinking into the sea?
No, I mean, what's the fun if there's not regular annual flooding and year-round subsidence?
Yeah. So you're in Venice then?
So now I live in Venice.
That's magnificent. And your report to me before we got started was, how's Venice? Cold.
Yeah.
The entirety, not the architecture that you mentioned, not the people, not the food it's famous for, the fashion. Oh, it's cold.
Well, funny you should mention fashion, because the fact that it's cold does mean, for any really hardcore elements of Ask an Archaeologist, I am wearing my podcasting dressing gown.
Yeah.
The same podcasting dressing gown as I used to wear quite a lot when we recorded.
Oh, yeah. Your house that we recorded in was so cold. unbelievably cold, but I think that kind of came across in the podcast with the kind of the length of them has gone up as I've become more comfortable to sit in the one location. Like when it was in your room, it was like 35 minutes in, out, answer the questions. Yeah. What's the favourite thing you found? Oh, just a stone. That's it. Get out. Yeah. So yeah, welcome back. How does it feel?
It's lovely. It's so nice to be back. It's so nice to talk to you. Yeah. I listened to the last episode that we did together this afternoon, just to kind of remind myself how it goes when there's two of us, as opposed to just me listening to you interviewing somebody else. And I realised that there's a point in it that you tell me that we can't be friends anymore because I've never seen a Star Wars film.
Yeah.
So I like the idea that there are going to be people out there who listen to that and went, oh, that's what
she's gone. Whatever he said happened afterwards. Nah, never happened.
Not allowed back until she's watched a Star Wars film.
I mean, have you seen a Star Wars film since?
No!
Oh, Duel, this is going to be a short episode. This is going to be I gave you a chance.
Right. Well, one day, it's not deliberate, not personal.
Not even The Mandalorian. Come on, they made The Mandalorian. They gave you every opportunity.
So people keep saying that, but I would have thought that I'd have to watch something else before I could watch The Mandalorian.
Nah, I mean, you're going to get... It's mostly made of Easter eggs, so... Yeah, probably. But also, Shooty Bang. Yeah, Shooty Bang and Fly Fly.
Interesting.
Yeah. What I'm not going on afterwards, when we finish here, is to do a film critique podcast.
Why not? I think Shooty Bang Bang Fly Fly.
Yeah. Mandalorian, 3 ticks, much good. Also, Shooty Bang Bang. No takeies, tiny children. Nice. So, do you remember, like, in the very early days, had you had any interest in archaeology before you got started in this?
No. I mean, beyond being somebody who knew you and therefore heard bits about archaeology every so often, I came as a complete sort of novice, knowing nothing.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because it has really changed the way I think about things, particularly here, because everything is so old. But walking around, and I notice more things. In fact, as well, because I quite often just send you photos of walls that I've seen that I think look interesting.
Yeah, basically, I'm doing free buildings archaeology for you. Like, you send me a photograph, and I send you it with it like marked up with all of the phasing on. Yeah,
and it's the kind of thing that I would have previously looked and gone, that's quite pretty, and carried on. And now I see more things, and it's made me much more aware of the world around me, which is great.
Well, that's quite cool. I mean, I couldn't hope for anything more to have change one person's mind, and that one person was almost contractually obliged to be there. Tick. Done it. This point, I can finally close it down.
In fact, that's why you're finishing, isn't it? Because you don't want more people to start sending you photos of walls.
No. I think, although I will say that is one of the side effects of having done the Ask an Archaeologist podcast is I do, on a fairly regular basis, get sent photographs of rocks that people are like, is this something? It's like, yes, it's a rock. Is it worth anything? Possibly to a geologist. I don't know. But yeah, I'll either get is this old, or I'll get I found this and it's clearly like a piece of looted treasure. Can you say that it's old? And I'm like, do you want me to say that it's old so that you can show that you've got provenance for it and now you can sell it on the black market? No. So that was an unexpected side effect. What do you remember what your favourite episode was that we did together? Or like, because we did more like question and answery ones.
Yeah.
And then it worked very differently. I went out and I recorded
the
interviews badly and then just sent them back for you.
And then
for triage.
I think it's not one that we did together, but the really early one that was the interview with Citizen. That was something that I found fascinating.
Yeah. That was Steph, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's moved on to bigger and better things. I think she basically runs Lambeth or something like that now.
Something needs to.
Yeah, there's a South London borough with a velvety, iron-fisted dictator.
Great.
And I hope she hears that. I hope she hears that I've called her a velvety, iron-fisted dictator. Which is not what I meant to call her, but I've done it now.
No take backsies.
No take backsies. You literally cannot edit sound.
No, it's impossible. People have tried, but they've never succeeded.
Never succeeded. Now, what would a final episode between the two of us be without...
Some
questions. And let's be honest, in 5 years, I have got slick at transitions.
Great.
Mostly because I'm transitioning to myself in my bedroom alone most of the time.
I have, as always, organised the questions into a sensible order. But what I've forgotten to do is note who asked them all. I have lost my touch. So the first one, taking a moment to look back, is from Twitter. It's from Mickey, who is asking, what was your favourite episode or moment from the show?
My favourite episode or moment? Oh, there's been so many. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that guy. You're all my favourite children.
Moment though, can't you?
Yeah. Do you know what's been actually quite nice outside of the podcast, but I'll say is for favourite moment, is any time I've had people come up to me when I've been doing shows or talks outside of it, and they'll just like wander past and they'll go, I really like the podcast, by the way, and walk on. And it is like, I think the closest I will ever come to some sort of rock star thing. I'm like, a man listens to my niche podcast, came to see my other niche thing that I do. What an incredible surprise that person was interested in both.
That was possibly one of my real high points of working on this. When I was at a pub quiz, and we were all in my team massive fans of our quiz master, who was just really funny and really smart. We'd been doing his quiz for ages. We got chatting at the end of one evening, and I happened to mention something to do with archaeology and doing this. And it turned out that he was a super fan of yours.
Oh my God.
And I felt so cool.
You're like, I'm the duel.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's really cool. So that's outside of it, but let's answer the question properly. Favourite moment? Oh, it's really easy, actually. When I got the courage up to interview or ask for interviews of the people who'd been in Time Team when I was doing the Dig Ventures Lindisfarne conference. And what ended up happening is, it doesn't make it onto the podcast. I've got an interview with Phil Harding. You know, Phil Harding. I just like digging holes. You know, I don't really... I've been an archaeologist so long, I'm practically part of the, you know, the things that go in museums, ain't I? And he was amazing. But the really incredible thing was, he sat with me and he's got a cup of tea on the go and a biscuit, and he's sat chatting with me about Time Team and he's giving the interview, and I say, thanks very much, and I turn off the recorder, and he's like, no worries, we've got nowhere else to go. Do you want to talk a bit more? And I didn't turn the recorder back on, but we chatted for like another half an hour afterwards just about life in archaeology. And it was a genuinely incredibly pleasing moment, because obviously this is someone who had a massive influence on me and quite a lot of other people of my generation. I've spoken about it before, the Time Team bump, where it's applications for university places almost doubled just during the time the Time Team was on television, and I was very much one of those people. And now the nice man off the telly with the sweaty hat was just chatting to me as a peer, really, and that was what was really, really lovely about it. He had no sort of he had no like airs and graces. I also saw Carenza a couple of months afterwards, and she still scared the bejesus out of me. She just exuded hard-earned knowledge, with a strong gaze, and I was just like, oh no. But I've met quite a lot of people from Time Team, and most of them were lovely. What's his face? I've forgotten his name. Baldrick.
Tony Robbins.
There we go. Tony Robinson once gifted me with a beautiful moment, because I was going to go and do some stand-up on that weekend for the Dig Ventures thing, and they had me in an inflatable pub to do the night before, and it's the only time I've ever been told that to be careful in a venue. With the words, now, of course, if the wind goes over a certain speed, we're going to have to empty the venue because it might blow away. It's like, right, lovely. But I performed the first night. I was supposed to do 2 nights. Performed the first night without any problems. Right, went down really well. Didn't have a mic. I was literally trying to shout over the sound of the generator that was inflating the venue around me.
You're well equipped for that, though, luckily.
Oh, yeah. Also, not the first time I've performed on an archaeological site in an inflatable venue. Yeah, I also did one on Hadrian's Wall whilst the tent... That was different because the inflatable pub stayed up. Like, it was like a bouncy castle. The inflatable tent that I think it was English Heritage had would slowly descend, and then the blowers would go again, and the roof would lift up. But because they put a stage in it, and I'm quite tall, every 2 minutes in the middle of my set, the roof would come and gently kiss the top of my head, and then as it touched me, these industrial fans would go blow the roof back up over. So have you ever blown the roof off? No, but I have blown it up.
It's close.
Yeah, so anyway, I did the inflatable pub the first night, and they said, hey, listen, do you want to do the main stage the next day? I was like, yeah. And they said, what we're going to do is we're going to have a big panel talk, and then we'll have you on afterwards. It's over the lunch break, but hopefully people, will maybe get their lunch and come and listen to you doing the thing. I was like, it's not ideal, but cool, why not? I'm there to... I'm there at your pleasure. I'll do do whatever you ask me. And I'm sat at the back waiting to go on. And there's it's basically everybody who's there, because the whole weekend was sort of in memory of Mick Aston, who was the guy who came up with the idea of Time Team, and he'd passed away. And so the whole panel was reminiscing about what it was like on Time Team, and the crowd are eating out of their hand like this. Imagine Time Team groupies. Correct. Right?
Yep.
They're just, the anecdotes. Oh, the anecdotes are flying. And then it comes to the end, and Tony Robinson goes on stage, and he goes, right, I think that's what we've got all time for. Now, I believe we've got some stand-up comedy next. And I will never forget what he says, because he was supposed to sort of introduce me or whatever. But I think he just weirdly got I don't know what he'd done. He got the wrong end of the stick or whatever, because he comes on stage and he goes, we've got some stand-up comedy next. So if you could all just clear the room as quickly as possible, that'd be great. So from a packed, 400 seats, literally not a single person stayed. Because when Tony Robinson tells a crowd of, Time Team superfans who've travelled to Lindisfarne to get out of a room, they get out of that room.
Whoa!
Absolutely cleared it. I don't know what he was thinking. I do know what he's thinking. He was thinking, I've got to save these people from archaeology stand-up.
Oh, that's so brutal.
Yeah. So there's been some interesting moments.
So that's looking back.
Yeah.
Looking forward, Becky Gilmore, friend of the podcast, Becky Gilmore.
Friend of the former interviewee.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I was going to say former friend.
Former friend, former person. She's evolved.
Just a small, easy question. What do you think archaeology as a discipline will look like in 10 years' time? What will its missions and challenges be?
So right now, we're kind of at a bit of an interesting crossroads. Former friend of the podcast. Because the podcast is dead now. They're fine. But Sadie Watson is currently working on a research project to look at what specifically commercial archaeology might look like in the future, specifically the public benefit of it. If anyone hasn't seen it, Kate and her and Sadie Watson are putting loads of stuff out, asking people to fill in questionnaires, and I think it's a really worthwhile thing to do because we really are like at an interesting turning point. Mainly because, and I'm sorry, this question, my answer will be to again UK commercial archaeology because that's what I know. But we're at a point where I think we've been involved in the construction industry for 30 years. In fact, last year, or was it this year? No, it was this January. Sorry, was the 30th anniversary of PPG 16, which was the first legal coverage, the first time that archaeology was included within the planning law in the UK. And so we've seen 30 years of archaeologists becoming professionalised and working within the sort of the framework of commercial sites and big infrastructure sites and things like that. But we've also seen 30 years of the construction industry getting to know what they're dealing with. And the argument now is, are we a public benefit or are we fulfilling statutory requirements of the planning industry? So I think we go one of two ways. Well, no, we don't go one of two ways because the world is not binary. Anyone who tells you it is binary is trying to sell you something, and it's usually bad pills. But
some bad experiences this week.
Bad pills. But no, it can go a lot of ways. But like a couple of, we could really just fully codify into the commercial sector and just be the people who get used to buy publicity for infrastructure projects, and we have a feedback loop in on ourselves of professional archaeologists telling other archaeologists about the archaeology they archaeologied, and there's no sort of like greater public benefit, or we start following new models of probably there's a word, the word co-production gets thrown around a lot, but I'm more and more of the opinion that the more people involved in archaeology, the more different backgrounds, the more like lived experiences of the world that are reflected in the way that you interpret our shared cultural experience, our shared cultural history through archaeology, the closer you'll get to having a sort of a greater understanding of it in the first place, but also it can actually be used to help people now. Some of the projects I've been involved in are like I did some workshops teaching people how to do historic standing building recording, and yeah, cool. They get to go and look around themselves. They get to understand their surroundings in a slightly different way. They get to send me pictures of brickwork if they really want to. But the main focus of it was a workshop that would get older men, over 50, who are notoriously hard to get to come out to social events, and who are in the UK at least most likely to experience loneliness. into a social setting and to hang around with other people. And I think that's genuinely where archaeology can go, is instead of being a record of past societies, or instead of just being a record of past societies, I think the benefit of it is you're learning about people and you're learning about society, but those lessons can be used to benefit our society and people today through increasing the participation in it, not like following this rigid, professionalized, closed circuit, but realizing that if you're talking about humanity, you have to let all of it in. And you have to understand that your way of viewing the world. If you look at any object, right? If I showed you, I don't know, if I showed you a key, yeah, that key might mean nothing to me, but you might recognise it as the key to someone's house that you know. So even like very simple, or someone else might understand a key as being something that they used to be a locksmith, so it takes them to a previous experience in their life. A key might mean that they'd had a terrible experience being locked up, you know. A key can mean so many other things that if you just get people from one perspective who see a key as a thing that opens a door rather than any of the other potential interpretations, you end up with a very narrow, a very boring understanding of the world. But if someone could tell you that a key is, you know, the weapon they use to slay a tiny mouse, then it's not the lived experience everyone has, but it's an experience that is fundamentally human, and that's what archaeology needs more of. It needs less corporations, I think. It needs less ticking boxes for the sake of boxes being ticked, and more using the interest in archaeology and the skills of archaeology, like the skill of taking information and taking evidence and applying critical thinking is, I think, unfortunately, as the world events show, something that really, 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 really we could all benefit from.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we have Georgie Cousins on Twitter, who is asking what your favourite fact to tell is, to give to other people is. I'm guessing this is archaeological related. None of the Star Wars. And also what your favourite fact you've learnt doing this is.
The favourite fact that I tell people, that's interesting. That's an interesting one, because I am a terrible bore who every time I learn a fact, like if you've ever sat near me when I'm trying to read a book, what you will quickly discover is that you should not be nearby if you want to have a quiet time, because I'll just go, oh my god, you won't believe this thing that I just learned in this book, and by the end of the book you'll have read it as well, or at least like the edited highlights. What's my favourite fact I like to tell people? It's really tricky, because like I've been on so many sites now, and you have to fill your head with all of the information about each site as you go. So it's sort of like whatever excites me at that particular time is like, oh my god, I've just learned this thing, and did you know that they did this and that and the other? Maybe I don't know. I don't know why, but I keep. When I once learned what Pott's fracture is, which is where TB gets into the bones of the spine and causes the spine to collapse, and I think the TB sort of clears up, but then the bone fuses so that there's a right angle in the middle of the spine. Yeah, it's really horrible. Like basically, the whole person collapses forward, and they get like a hunchback, and then all twisted over from it. And anytime I get an opportunity to try it, because I was not trained in osteology, so this is something that like sticks in my head. And if I ever spot, like when I've been doing cemetery sites or seeing osteological collections, if I see something that's like got a right angle spine, I'm like, oh, is that Pott's fracture? Like someone who's learned one thing about a car. Just come over and go, have you checked the catalytic converter? And walk off.
The thing, this, not that I'm the one that's not meant to be answering the questions, but the thing that always sticks with me, that I still find myself checking for in like day-to-day life if I'm bored in a meeting or something, was something I think that might have been from the show that inspired this podcast about the difference in male and female skulls.
Oh yeah.
I still find myself looking around a room going, yep, you've got a perfect head. Yeah, you've got a because the forehead, the brow is more pronounced in men.
Yeah, men. The occipital protrusion, the mastoid process, the brow ridge, the shape of the jaw, all that stuff. Good. I'm glad something actually stuck. Genuinely, it turns out you're the only person I've had any real impact on.
Still entirely worth it, just for me.
Thank you. I mean, that's pretty much why we started the podcast in the first place.
Yeah. You want to come and hang out with me?
Yeah, come and sure, we'll talk about your stupid job. Just come and hang out. The favourite fact I've ever been told, I think I had to edit out, so I can't probably talk about it. But it was about. I can't even go close. So someone told me something about their archive, and I was like, "What?" And it was amazing and quite wonderful and scary. And then they contacted me the next day and went, "Can we edit that out? Because I literally should not tell you it." And I was like, "Okay, bye bye." But the one that actually
thing that you will never ever forget from all of this.
Oh yeah, it was amazing, and I'll tell you about it when we're finished. But it was sort of like mind-blowingly fun. But of the people that I've actually spoken to in the podcast that has gone out on air, I quite enjoyed interviewing Emma Duffy. She was she was very fun, and just everything about it, and sort of like her being involved in the. I won't be able to say the name of the podcast properly because it's in Irish, and it's motherfucker, which I think, I'm probably wrong, but I think is something like mother tongue or mother language, but it sounds very rude. She was brilliant because that was something that I had that for me was something I didn't have any experience of in my own career. So it's whenever someone's told me something where I'm like, oh, I had absolutely no idea about this. That's astonishing. Or Jane Siddell telling me that she has to keep checking on a boat underneath the hospital to make sure it's all right every week.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm very glad you mentioned Emma, because she has actually also sent in a question, which is, who is your best guest and why was it me?
Oh, okay, cool. Tick, done. She was the best guest. She's also the best guest because she was. She keeps apparently dropping this Irish language podcast because she kept mentioning her enjoyment of the Ask an Archaeologist one. I have an unprecedented amount of Irish speaking followers on Twitter. for whom I provide zero content. Like, you know, they've committed to following a pasty English boy with not, you know, nothing for them, and for that I thank them.
Johnny Sog Rex, or Johnny Rex.
Johnny Rex, let's go for
it. Johnny Rex would like to know if you could work with any archaeologist, living or dead, who would it be?
Oh, a living one, please.
Dig them up.
Yeah. Living or dead archaeologist. Who would I want to work with? Do you know what? I wish I'd worked with Mick Aston or met him. I didn't meet him. I thought, because he's had such an impact on my life without ever having known me or met me or understood anything about me. You know, I think there's very few people in the world who've had that impact on me. There's two. It's Mick Aston and it's Terry Pratchett, and I can't meet either of them. So maybe I could get Mick Aston to help me dig up Terry Pratchett. That's not respectful, is it?
Well, is it the highest form of respect, given your passions?
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things that you'll definitely understand as you go through archaeology is that not everyone thinks the phrase "Gosh, you have an interesting skull. I'd love to see it when you're dead" is a compliment.
How strange! People are weird, aren't they?
They're weird.
So, almost our last question, and there have been a couple of different versions of this, so I'm just going to put it in my own words. But people want to know why you're stopping.
There are lots and lots of reasons, but there's a very huge reason who's currently asleep in another room right now. He's about 2 feet tall. He spent most of today screaming the word bubble at me. In a southern accent as well. I'm furious. I've ended up having... so we've got the kid, basically, and he takes a lot of energy and a lot of time. And the podcast takes a lot of energy and a lot of time, particularly in the fact that I've been doing it all on my Billy Todd for the last while. And since it's become... when it first started, it was... we discussed this. It was like the questions that I was getting were much more light-hearted, and the guests that I was getting were kind of like it started out with friends and colleagues, and then as we've gone along, like I did a whole episode on Brexit. I mean, who listened to that? How will Brexit affect archaeology? And honestly, that was Andrew Gardner, who was lovely, but he looked so depressed through the entire thing, and I don't think he's got any less depressed. That was like, I genuinely was like, I don't know if I could put this out. I think I might have to do an intervention instead. He seems so sad that it's got heavier and heavier as we go along, and I think a lot of the stuff that I was talking about was very important, but it was starting to get to a point where, like I knew I wanted to, like, if I wanted to do it properly, I had to put a lot of work into sort of making sure that really difficult discussions were framed in the proper way, given the proper time, and that I was speaking to guests who had a good grasp of what was going on in all of those topics. And there's stuff that I haven't covered because I just haven't, got my ducks in line. I haven't got my head round them in the right way. So, like, I'd love to have done something more about accessibility in archaeology. I think that's a bit of a blind spot, particularly in commercial archaeology. People sort of see building sites as these inaccessible places for people who are, are disabled, because, and I even paused there because I know that there's a social model of disability where one is described as having been disabled by the world, and there's another one who are disabled people, and I know that different people within the groups want to be referred to in different ways. So you can see, even in just that, wanting to cover the topic, I'm aware that there's so many aspects of it that, once again, me as a tall, white, straight man struggle to find an angle on. And it's wanting to do a good job and realising I ain't got the time to go and do it justice. And then a new podcast opened up, called Careers in Ruins, which is, there's a team of people in it who are doing it, and they were basically doing what I was doing, but better. So I kind of went, well, no one needs two of us. And I've done 51 episodes, I've done as many episodes as there are American states and and Washington DC.
You've done your time.
Yeah, you add any more to that, and it's just it's Puerto Rico. It's tricky. Yeah, I know there are other podcasts that are like in the length of time that I've done it, have got like 300 episodes. But I've done this on my own, and I'm not good at it. But no, I would urge people to go and subscribe to Careers in Ruins. They seem like nice lads. I tried to get them for an interview, did not get a response. Noted. I know, probably because they're just like, who's this guy? But yeah, I'd say they're doing really, really good work over there, and they're continuing. If you are looking to understand like the range of different careers in archaeology, that's exactly what they're doing, and that was always the sort of the remit of this, was to talk about all the different ways that archaeology exists and all the different ways that people engage with it. So we've done it, someone else is doing it now. Cool. But finally, the heaviness of it all, I'm talking to archaeologists. I've talked about the fact that I think that archaeology as a discipline can sometimes look up its own bum a bit. Like sometimes it's, I've seen people write in ways that infuriates me, because they write using inaccessible language and referencing things like people understand, understand what they're talking about instead of explaining things from the start. And I've tried to avoid that, through this, but I know that if I was going to go any further, it would be, it would just be me talking to other archaeologists about archaeology and whatever. So, for slightly less work on my behalf, I'm trying to find a way. I haven't got there yet, but I'm trying to find a way. There will be a different, probably podcast or webcast or I don't know, a stone tablet from me, because I'm trying to find a way where I can talk about archaeology to people who didn't become archaeologists. I have a lot of very interesting friends. I have a lot of very funny friends, and so many of them haven't ever seen any archaeology TV programs, let alone worked in the industry. So I'm trying to find a nice framework, a nice way of doing that, so that I'm going to talk to them about archaeology in a sneaky way, so that it's fun and hopefully funny, but also I can sneak in some of the stuff that I was talking about, so that people still learn a little bit or understand a little bit more about archaeology in a really plain, simple, and hopefully more accessible way. That's not going to be for a while, because, as I say, there's a 2-foot time vampire in the house. So I'll get there eventually.
You still like pointing at things?
Loves pointing at things and shouting ball and saying the word stick but mispronouncing the ST as a D.
Fantastic.
That's fun out in public. What are you pointing at? Stick, except not pronounced that way.
Excellent. Well, that sounds very exciting. And I'm sure, well, I know because they've said that lots of people will be very excited to hear that there is more to be hearing from you in the future.
Yeah. Oh, also, if anyone wants anything intense, I've also written another picture book. I did the first picture book that I put on YouTube about archaeologists don't find dinosaurs. I've done a second one that's called What is British? Oh, that's a spicy little meatball, isn't it? I've done illustrations, Dul. I'll show you some of them later. I'll send you pictures of them. Some of them, they're a bit much.
I can't wait. This looks amazing.
Oh yeah,
amazing.
Thank you.
It's exciting and amazing all in one.
Cool.
It's amazing.
I understand we have one last question.
One last question, which feels appropriate and right to end things off with, which is from Magnus Copps, which is, but is it ritual?
It's possibly ritual. We'd need more evidence to say. And for anyone who's interested, it's Sight Dog. And I'd like people to remember, ask an archaeologist. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye, Dil.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Ask an Archaeologist podcast with me, Garrity. The music you're listening to is by From the Ashes, check them out on Bandcamp. Produced by me, Garrity. Follow me on Twitter at AskAnArch, or you can send an email at askanarch@gmail.com. But most importantly, if you've enjoyed yourself and you think you have a friend who might be interested in the podcast, please tell them about it. Write a review, put a star rating, let people know that we're here. It's incredibly helpful, much appreciated. Once again, thank you to everyone who has asked an arc. Bye bye.